Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Glad to see you here today. I'm your Thursday, Friday, Monday guy. Today is Friday. It's March something or other. It's still bike week, so I know it's not the 10th yet because bike week's over on the 10th. It's raining a little piece on me, so it's not in the morning right now. It's in the afternoon a little bit, and half my yard it's raining over there, and it's raining over there, and slightly raining like right here, but. A couple drops on the Bible. But it's weird to watch it raining in half the yard. That's Florida for you. So Daytona Bike Weeks this week. It's kind of fun. And we're doing Ecclesiastes. Hey. And as we know, Ecclesiastes was written by King Solomon. And if you want to read more about King Solomon, just to know more about him, he's David and Bathsheba, right? David had that other kid that died after 7 days, his firstborn. That was the one that he had in the adulterous affair with the dude's wife that he killed and everything. Anyways, but then his second kid was Solomon, also named Jedediah. Remember, we learned that yesterday. And then he was the king, and when he was little, he prayed for wisdom. And if you want to read a little bit more about him, the first part of Kings, like the first 11 chapters in Kings, and then Second Chronicles, the first part of Second Chronicles in there is about King Solomon, and it gives you an insight as to who he was. And that's kind of a neat thing, so you get more background on the people that we're talking about. Anyway, so King Solomon, he wrote this, and Ecclesiastes 1, you know, basically a couple of the verses that stand out to you probably. One of them would be Ecclesiastes 1:9. And that's the one that says there's nothing new under the sun. And you've probably heard that expression, didn't know where it came from. Well, that's where it comes from. It comes from Ecclesiastes 1. And when people say, you know, there's nothing new under the sun, there really isn't. So, oh, well, yeah, but today there's people wearing women's clothes and men's wearing women's clothes. Yeah, that happened in Deuteronomy, which is one of the first books of the Bible. So that happened. And there's just all sorts of other stuff that have happened in the cycle of life. Like if you've ever watched a soap opera over a long period of time, basically that's the Bible has little soap operas inside of it and tells you the character of people and how they'll act, and basically you trust people to be themselves, and they show that they're true to form. And people who are on a spiritual journey act a certain way. You can see there's a pattern to that too, and you expect something out of those people. And in Ecclesiastes 1:9, we learn that there's nothing new under the sun. And but it's funny because Solomon starts out, if you read the King James Version, it's going to be, he starts out saying, vanity, vanity, vanity. Everything is vain. So, but the modern translation of that would be meaningless. So New American Standard Version or New International Version says meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. Life is just meaningless. It has no meaning to it. And he talks about in Ecclesiastes 1, if you read it, you know, the stream and the wind, everything kind of recycles. So generations forget each other, and the streams flow down into the sea never fills, and then the water's back at the source, and it flows into and the winds blow from north to south, and then south to north. So he basically talks about how life is cyclic, and generations forget each other because they toil under the sun, they do their things, and that each generation gets their eyes set on, and then after a while they're forgotten, and we move on to something new, and then we repeat the cycle. And then the other part of Ecclesiastes 1 that I liked was towards the end, because Solomon determines that it's futile to determine your purpose based on observation or reason. You can't just reason into your purpose. And so Solomon discovers that he says, in much wisdom there is much grief. And that's kind of how that chapter ends. In much wisdom there is much grief. And that's Ecclesiastes 1:18, and it goes on a little bit more there. And I'll read that to you. So I'll read both of these, so I'm not accused of like making up my own stuff or just telling you what it says. I like to read it to you as well. And we'll see. Funny, I'm passing by all the Kings and the Chronicles right now, which is where we can read more about him, Solomon. So, let's see. I'm trying to get there, guys. Sorry. It's taking a little bit of time. There we are. So Ecclesiastes 1, and then we're going to go to 1:9. That which has been is what will be, that which is done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. So that's that one. And then 18 is, that's it. That's the end of it. Verse chapter 1. It says, "For in much wisdom is much grief, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow." Well, that's true too, isn't it? So the more you know about what's going on, the more grief you would have because you'd know what's actually happening. Those people that walk around with their head either in the sand or just those people that are just totally oblivious to what's happening. And I guarantee you, there are people in churches, going to churches every Sunday, that have no clue what's going on in the world right now because they don't like to watch the news and it brings them down and on these other things. So they have no clue what's going on in the world. They're just living in their own little life, and they don't realize that the world is in a spiritual battle because they're not relating to people. And so one can get so involved in trying to determine their own identity or own destiny that they forget about what's really important, and that's God. And God will help you find your purpose. And we know that because I'm not talking to guys. For the most part, people who watch these videos aren't guys that haven't been saved. They're guys that are actually living the life and trying to figure out what to do next. So Ecclesiastes, it tells you a little bit. It'll get you going and get you thinking about, hey, okay, because there's a weight that we put to certain things. There are certain values that we put to things, and the value that we place on them are usually based on the conditions in which we live. So I know that if I give up my job doing this, I'll sacrifice that and I won't get this. So we don't want to let go of some things to grab onto something else. And sometimes it's a leap. They call it a leap of faith. And so that's one of the things that that Christians often take is a leap of faith. You're going into it. You're reaching out for that next bar. Those of you who've been through Marine Corps boot camp and some of the Army obstacle courses, there's that one obstacle where it's scary because you gotta kind of lean back and jump, and you're already pretty high up there. And if you don't jump and hold on and shimmy your way up, you're gonna fall. And so taking that leap, I think the Marine Corps has a word has a name for that obstacle. It's called the dirty name. So it was called something else first. It was called the dirty name, and then they renamed it the dirty name. So that's one of the things, though. And when you jump out, or if you've ever done the hell hole, where you jump out of a helicopter, or if you're on the rappel tower and you got to do the hell hole, well, you're doing that fast roping. So you're not actually hooked into anything. You're not tied down to anything. So when you jump out, you're trying to grab that rope and then get your feet into a position so you can use them as brakes. And you have to slide down the rope pretty fast. And once you get down the rope, you have to get out of the way because there's another guy right behind you. So taking that first leap and getting that going is often one of the hardest things to do, right? That leap of faith. But we've also are going to learn in here that nothing really matters. All the stuff we acquire or accumulate, or like everything that we do, it all doesn't matter. Now, there is a purpose to this life, and God has directed us and said, hey, look, there is a purpose to your life, and it's written in this book. So if you're willing to do my will and surrender yourself to me, there's a place you're going to go that's better when you're done. And while you're here, you won't have everything given to you, but you'll get your daily bread. And a lot of times people do live prosperous lives when they believe in God, because they have to be in positions to do things for him. And a lot of times too, because of the lifestyle that you're living, you're not drinking, you're not excessively partying, you're not doing all those things that you used to do. I mean, some of you guys still go out and party it up a little bit, but I mean, you're not doing it the way that you used to do. I don't do it at all anymore. my life has changed a lot. My direction and focus has changed because I've surrendered myself to Jesus Christ, and I've said, hey, Lord, what would you like me to do? And I'm ready to do some difficult, not just sit there and go to church every Sunday or try to apostatize to people on the beach or anything. So I'm ready for a little bit of a challenge, and I think God's ready to challenge anybody who's ready to take it up. So anyways, I hope you enjoy Ecclesiastes, but there is grief and wisdom, and you'll find that out the more that you grow and the more that you learn. Well, hey, love your neighbor as yourself, but first of all, love God with all your heart. Now, sometimes I mess that up, but that's because I'm human, and when I mess up, then I need to repent. Not for this. I'll just try to do it again. How about this? All right, love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. Just having a rough day, I guess.